Right, I think we need to make a start. As it is, we run out of time so quickly, and we want to give an opportunity for everybody to try and participate as much as possible in the one short hour that we have. So I would like to welcome all of you. Good morning, colleagues, friends, alumni, and students of Regent Business School. I'm Ronel Blom, Academic Dean at Regent Business School. It is such a pleasure to see so many of you joining us this morning. And always remember, that these webinars are available as a recording, and so you can always watch it later as well. The topic under discussion this morning is part of a two-part series where we were reflecting on creating your dream career. In the previous webinar, we discussed what we should be doing to enhance our careers. However, this morning we'll be discussing what we should not be doing. I think that's an important point. So the title of the webinar speaks for itself: 10 career-limiting moves you need to avoid. To help us understand these matters is Ms. Cindy Norcott. Cindy is an old and valued friend of Regent Business School. She's a motivational speaker, business coach, and CEO of 2 award-winning personnel agencies, Pro Talent and Pro Appointments. She's also the founder of the Robin Hood Foundation, and I believe the foundation was kept particularly busy after the recent floods in KZN. On behalf of all of us, thank you, Cindy. Back to the business at hand. Cindy, I can think of 1 or 2 career-limiting moves that I personally managed to avoid. I might even give you an example of it a little bit later. But I would be very interested to hear your advice. So all I need to say is welcome back, and over to you. Cindy?
Thank you so much, Dr. Blom, and good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here and to share some thoughts with you. As Dr. Blom has said, I've been in recruitment for 30 years, and it's been an interesting journey. So often when I do references on candidates, or I interview candidates, or I speak to their managers, there's things that have happened that the candidate was completely unaware of. And so often I've interviewed people who say, I've been in this company 10 years. Everybody around me has been promoted and I'm stuck. And when I do their references or after interviewing them, I can actually see why they haven't been promoted. And I think there's a beautiful saying, the unexamined life is not worth living. So many people lack self-awareness. For many years in my career, I wasn't very clued up as to what my blind spots were or what some of my overplayed strengths were. So I think today what I'm hoping you'll do is not take offense by any of the comments I make, but maybe use these 10 points as a personal checklist to ask yourself, could I be sort of committing some of these career limiting moves, we call them CLMs, that might be actually, holding me back without me having ever realized it. And I think sometimes we are subconsciously sabotaging ourselves. We don't mean to, we don't intend to, we don't want to, but we are doing things that maybe, if we now know about it, we can go, aha, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to try harder here. And remember, I do a lot of coaching. There's 3 things that one needs to do if you want to change. The first thing is, what do I need to stop doing because I'm doing it and it's not actually working well for me? The second thing is, what do I need to start doing because I haven't been doing it? But if I start this, it's going to be amazing. It's going to help me. And then the third thing is, what do I need to continue doing? These are the things I'm good at. These are my strengths. So hopefully you'll be getting 10 out of 10. Or maybe even better, you're not getting 10 out of 10, but you've learned 1 or 2 things. A lot of them are very basic. So you might think, oh gosh, I knew this already, but I just wanted to share them with you. So the first thing you might think, gosh, I can't believe this would be considered a career limiting move, but it's your poor image, appearance, or grooming. I'll give you an example, a personal example. I have very straight hair. So I often do morning seminars, and I'll wash my hair, rush off to the morning event. And a friend once said to me the one day, he said, do you know that sometimes you arrive with wet hair? It's not professional. And afterwards I thought about it, and I thought he's absolutely as the guest of honor or as the speaker. Some of my hair is a little bit wet. It sounds so silly. The one day I was sitting in a board meeting, and I noticed that I was the only lady who had chipped nails and no nail polish. I know it might sound crazy, but if people are judging you, they're judging you by the little things. I remember once going on a plane, and the chair wasn't secured properly. The seatbelt wasn't working. And all I could think of is, how's the engine? So, just a few things, some things that people might do, they might put on too much makeup, or it might be a job where you actually maybe need some makeup. Body odor, it's a very personal issue. Bad breath. If you're working with clients, or you're working close with other team members, maybe it's a question to ask yourself is, how do people feel around me? For some people, it's skimpy or tight-fitting clothes, people whose underwear is seen as outerwear, and things like that you might say, well, this is my style, this is the fashion. Remember, often you're working for people who are older than you, and they are more conservative than you. So in a workplace, or sometimes it's your clients, and remember, you're going to dress to the culture of your company. So some of you might say, well, I'm in a graphic design business, it's trendy, it's edgy. Fantastic. You can wear your shorts or your jeans. But if you're working, say, for an accounting firm or a law firm or a bank, you might need to be a lot more conservative. So I think it's not necessarily about you. It's about fitting into the culture and the environment and what's conducive. So, for instance, if I arrive as a motivational speaker in my shorts and my tackies, you might go, gosh, I don't think she's credible. You might be doing a sales pitch for a client, and your company is very relaxed, but your client's a formal client, you might want to dress a little bit better. Unmended clothing, you've got a pair of pants or a skirt or something, or shirt where the hems come undone. It could be unpolished shoes or scuffed shoes. Silly things like that can make a difference. Here's a sensitive one: tattoos. Tattoos are incredibly fashionable. A lot of people see them as cool, but I know for a fact there are many, many companies that will not hire people with visible tattoos. Piercings. A lot of people love lots of piercings, and it's considered very trendy as well. But some companies are not open to people with too many piercings as well. So, I think, and you might say, well, it's too late, I have tattoos. If you have tattoos, you might need to cover them up for that first interview, or you might need to disclose that to the company. And again, it's not about judgment. It's about the fact that when you're being employed by somebody, or when you're being promoted by someone, you might look at that and go, well, it's not what I want, but you might need to make decisions based on what's not going to hamper your future career. And I love that saying, dress for the position you aspire to be. Always dress one level above your actual job. I think that's an important thing. Now, you might say, well, we have casual Fridays, and on casual Fridays, anything goes. I have made that mistake before, where I've worn jeans and tackies and a T-shirt, and my top client called me and said, we need to have an urgent issue with our staff. We need to meet you. And I felt completely inadequate. That was the last time I dressed too casually. So even on casual Fridays, I would use this as the rule of thumb. Dress in an appropriate way, that if your top client needed to see you, or top management, that you wouldn't feel embarrassed, to be in their company. I think that's an important thing. But here's another thing. You might say, well, Cindy, I'm on Zoom calls. I work from home and it doesn't matter. I have spoken to many managers who are concerned that staff are arriving at Zoom calls in their pajamas in the day, or with their hair not done. And I know some people say, well, I'm working from home. Who cares? Remember, people judge you by the little things. So you might find you arrive at a Zoom call, you've just gone for a run or whatever, and you're sweaty, and people go, oh my gosh, I wonder how their work is at the moment. this person doesn't look prepared, they don't look professional. And remember, we don't want to have any sort of negative about ourselves in any, in any situation. So even if it's a Zoom call, make sure that you're dressed, and you know how it is at the moment, everyone's dressing casually on the bottom and dressing for Zoom on the top. But I think it is important that we give that impression that we are professional, we are well-groomed, and that our image is one that is presenting us in the best possible light. The second thing, and again, you might say this is so old-fashioned, it's relating to attendance and punctuality. It's a question we ask in every single reference. How was the candidate's attendance and how was their punctuality? I know we are moving into a much more flexible world where people are allowed to work certain flexi hours, or certain companies are quite progressive and they're saying it doesn't matter, it's not about inputs, it's about outputs. But there are still many, many companies where how they see the employment relationship is you give your 8.5 hours a day. That is what you are, our almost property. I know it might sound draconian. You are our resource for 8.5 hours, and we give you a salary. That is how this relationship works. You've entered into a contract to do that. So for some companies, it's a big no-no if you're habitually late, or if you are, always off work, or you're never available when they need to. So I think an important move to make is to work out what is the expectation of the company that I'm in right now, and how can I meet the expectations. So, you might find your boss is a little bit difficult about people arriving early or leaving, arriving late or leaving early. Some companies have a real issue with people who permanently are on smoke breaks or coffee breaks or take extra long lunch hours. What I'm saying is work out what is expected in your organization and give the company what they expect. That's normally the best type of thing I could suggest you do. Also, if you want to be promoted, I'd imagine the higher powers in your company would want to promote somebody into a leadership role, and they would choose somebody who sets a great example. So I think, and you might say, Cindy, this is terrible, but then maybe you might need to either work for yourself, get involved in the gig economy, do contracts, or work in a really cool company that says no problem. But not everybody has the luxury of choosing where they work. They might need to adapt to the place that they work and make it work for them. Also, I think employers want to see that people care about the company. So when they just see that the person's all about me, that WIFM mentality, what's in it for me? I need to come in late, I need to leave early, and every time the person's speaking to management, they're asking for more time off. And I see somebody said we need to talk about 8.5 hours. And I think that is a big move at the moment in the workplace. A lot of people are realizing that they don't want to work 8.5 hours. I think we are going to see more companies offering more flexibility, lesser hours, so that people can have more of a work-life balance. However, if you are in a company that's not there yet, you might need to just buckle down while you're still employed there and give them what you agreed to give them in your contract. The third thing that I think people do without realizing that it could harm them is pretending that they know everything. I know so many people who've gone to interviews and they've said, how's your knowledge of Excel or Pastel or Zero, and they'll say it's fantastic, and then they give them a test and the person doesn't know what they're doing. So for me, if you are working in a company or you're new in a company and you go into training, take notes. I think it's important that they see that, firstly, that you are committed, that you are engaged, and that you are interested in actually learning about the job. And just something to set your mind at ease. It's okay not to know everything. If you go into a new job or new company or a new role, you're not going to go in at the highest level. You're going to start as a beginner, and then you're going to grow. And I think the best way to grow is to ask questions. So I think it's so important. It doesn't make you look incompetent. So don't let your ego get in the way of your career progress. Speak up. I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not sure about this, or can you confirm? also I find sometimes when somebody starts a new role, they are bombarded. They are overtrained in the first week or two, and stuff that they should have learned is almost too much. So you might say, can you show me that again? I don't think I got that quite right. And don't be scared of that. Also, asking for help indicates that you are self-aware of your limitations. We all have limitations. I'm very nervous of those people who start a new role and say, I've got it. And I'm like, wow, how did you get it when this is something new for you? And then on that note, I realized that success at work isn't about doing it alone. It's about working with the support of a team. So, and it probably will make you more approachable to other people if you do ask for help as well. And what I've realized is some people are so scared of highlighting their weaknesses for fear that there's going to be a target on their back. Oh, this person's incompetent, or this person doesn't know their job. And sadly, I think that's often due to a culture of fear in a company. So I think if you on this call are a leader or a manager or a team member, encourage people to be vulnerable and to say, I need more help here. I need more training or retraining there. I think that's an important thing. And then another thing is, I think what's an important factor is many employees hide mistakes. So they make a mistake and then they don't go back to management they don't ever report on it. They kind of hope it'll go away. And often that's a real red flag for an employer. They'll be like, what else are you hiding? So let's be more vulnerable, more open. Go to your manager or go to your boss or the owner of the company and say, listen, I just want to let you know this happened. I'm giving you the heads up. Because now imagine if a client phoned and said, Cindy made a big mistake, but the manager knew about it. And they go, yes, Cindy told me about it and I've heard what happened. That's a much better situation than having your manager ambushed and not knowing what went down. And also, if you are able to do that, that really builds that relationship of trust. And remember, one of the main reasons people dismiss people is because that trust relationship has broken down. They've done something. So you don't want to have done lots of little things. So these are called not lies, but errors of omission. Oh, I didn't tell you about that. I didn't think it mattered. Rather tell the person and be courageous. The fourth thing, and this is my personal pet hate, is when people say, that's not my job. And you might have a very specific job. Your job is you are the bookkeeper of the company. And they say, listen, there's a client. Can you speak to them? No, I'm the bookkeeper. What are we finding at the moment is since COVID, many companies have become incredibly lean. They've leaned down. They don't have necessarily a receptionist or a tea lady or a PA. Often what happens now is everyone's got to do everything. And I think it's an era of flexibility, where flexibility and adaptability are needed. So I love that saying where it says, a great man is always prepared to be little. So I would advise you every day to do at least one thing that you're not paid to do. And to be the first one to put up your hand to say, I'll do that. So, there's lots of dirty jobs in a company. I'll give you an example. My company is a recruitment company, but we are also a drop-off point for the Robin Hood Foundation. So we have people arriving, and my recruiters often have to jump out of their desks and go downstairs and grab donations and put them in our storeroom. That's not part of their job. But I'm so blown away by the people who jump up first and go, I'll do it, no problem. That's such a beautiful, willing attitude. So I think sometimes we need to maybe adjust our attitude. Why is making a cup of coffee for somebody beneath me? Why is vacuuming the office beneath me? I'm an entrepreneur. I started on my own. Everything was done by me. So I have that mentality that surely if I can do it as the owner of the company, you can also do it. So just be careful of when you are interviewed or when you are in the workplace where somebody says, what won't you do? Or what is beneath you? Be careful of saying, oh, I won't do this. I won't do this. I won't do this. So a few years ago, I spoke at a college, and these were all people who were going into sort of like an executive PA role. And I asked them the question, if I asked you in the interview, would you make me a cup of coffee? What would you say? And the one lady said, it depends how you ask me. The other one said, it depends if it's in my job description. And then the third one said, I would make you coffee if you made me coffee. So it's quite an interesting thought that sometimes people are, by being picky or by being, they don't even realize that they're being judged because they never put up their hand. They never offer to do the dirty work. So, and here's another thing. Sometimes if you are honest, you might find your boss is busy, or your team leader or your manager is busy, and you think, gosh, they are so hectic. Have you ever said, can I make you a cup of coffee? I'm making myself one. Would you like a glass of water? Can I help you? You know, a lot of people go, well, that's sucking up, or that's, that's not cool. But sometimes it's not about sucking up. It's just about being helpful. And another thing, I find sometimes people will never thank their boss for a bonus or an increase or a gift or sending them on training. I think it's something bosses really appreciate and managers appreciate, is some gratitude for doing something that they didn't have to do. So maybe in your checklist, just ask yourself, am I thanking people? I know we thank our clients, thank you for the business, but are we thanking people in our team for helping us, and managers? Because remember, people will, if you are grateful for something, people will want to give more of that, whether they are your boss or a teammate as well. So I would encourage that volunteer mentality if you want to go far in your company. And a question we always ask in references is, did this person go the extra mile? And many people are not promoted or not hired because their boss will flatly say no. And remember, the one question we always ask is, would you re-employ this person? And if somebody says not really, actually no, that's generally a really big red flag. The fifth thing is being good at your job. So being technically good, being smart, but not being good with people. And I think we're moving into a world where there's no people. You can't not be a people's person. So you might say, well, I'm the bookkeeper, I'm the IT person, I'm the developer, I'm the engineer. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. Years ago, people were employed due to their IQ, due to their matric marks, their varsity qualifications. But many companies are seeing that it's about a culture fit. It's about the people skills. It's about the soft skills, which aren't really soft. They're actually incredibly important. So, for me, don't only be task-oriented. I have often had to coach people who are grumpy. They're difficult characters. They're very good at their job, but they take no nonsense. They're abrupt. They're brisk. They say what they mean and mean what they say, but not always in the nicest way. And they wonder why they're never appreciated or nobody likes them. So sometimes we need to soften up. We need to, instead of walking in the office and just going to your desk, walk in, good morning, how are you? Smile with your eyes, how are you doing? Speak to people by name, walk the pipeline, just make small talk when you go to the water cooler, and just add that little extra personality. So these days, it's more about your emotional quotient, your EQ. There's a wonderful saying, it's not what you, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So every day in the workplace, use this as a little checklist. Did I make somebody's day? Did I catch them doing something right? Did I give them an offer of help? Did I volunteer? Did I pay a sincere compliment? I was listening to a motivational speaker the other day, and he said what he tries to do is he tries to surround himself with +1 people. He said, these are people who add to every situation. And he said, what he tries to avoid is the -1 people, those people who kind of take or are negative or complain or aren't contributing. And he says he tries to avoid the neutral people. They don't make a difference, but he's trying to find the +1 people. And I thought that was such a great analogy for life. Be that +1 person every day. And remember now, you might say, but yesterday I was a +1 person. I volunteered and I did this. But it's not about your brand in the workplace. It's not about what you do once. It's about what you do consistently and continuously. So build a brand as being that person who always gives more than they take. That is the kind of person that everybody wants to hire. So I think for me, people who are getting ahead in their careers are incredibly good at building relationships. They're good at making other people feel great. So they'll even let other people take the credit from time to time. And remember, most of us have to work in teams, even if it's remotely. So our people skills are important. You want to be in a position where you are always in credit with your peers, with your manager, where you've always done that extra little task, or that, you want to be in that position. And remember, nobody can make you feel anything without your permission. So you can't say, my boss offended me. Well, you allowed your boss to offend you, or my colleague makes me mad. You have a choice about your response. So I think that's so important.
So I think, Cindy, just a brief pause. So there's an interesting comment here. Charles said that, don't you think it's a good idea that every employee should go on a body language course when joining the company?
Absolutely. I think body language is a very misunderstood concept. And maybe I'll go on to the next point, being a negative attitude, because often we are perceived to be negative or not positive. So we might be perceived to be the -1 person, not due to anything that we're doing work-wise, but due to possible body language. So I'll give you an example. You sometimes get those people who walk into work and they walk slowly, like they don't want to be there. When you say, hello, how are you? They don't make eye contact. They slouch. They sit at their desk and they look like they're not. So body language is so, so important. We've all been into a government department or a bank or a post office or something where we've gone up to somebody and you can see that they hate their job and they hate their lives. So I think negative attitude is always perceived by your body language. So, and it's a very, very interesting thing, because it's a hard thing to manage and it's a hard thing to measure, but it's so clear that it's there. So your boss might look at you and say, you've got a bad attitude, and you're going, but why? I don't know. And meanwhile, your body language is indicating it.
Yes.
So your boss says, will you just see this client out? And you're giving, sometimes our faces give us away. So I think it might be a good idea to develop a little bit of a poker face, where if our face tells what we're feeling. And I think sometimes in business, when you deal with customers, when you deal with a lot of people, we sometimes have to wear that professional mask. And I know we don't want to be inauthentic, but sometimes it's so important. And that leads me to the Walt Disney Company. I heard stories about when the staff are dressing up as Mickey Mouse. Imagine how the person is employed to be Mickey Mouse, and he is about to get into that costume. There's a full-length mirror, and they say, are you ready to be the best Mickey Mouse today? If not, don't put that costume on. Because imagine Mickey Mouse coming out and smacking someone or walking with negative body language. So I think it's so important to say, listen, am I ever portraying a negative attitude? I'm the last one to come into the meeting. When I'm in the meeting, I'm sitting on my phone. When I'm on a call, I never contribute, and when I'm sitting there, I don't look into the camera. They can see that I'm not that interested. And I think it's so important. We want our attitude to show that we care about what we do. And it is definitely about the body language. And also on the negative attitude, when you're in a meeting and your boss comes up with new ideas, show some enthusiasm. Some people just sit there. And I've been on calls, so many calls in the last 2 years, where they ask for people to say something and nobody says a word. And I think, oh my gosh, if I was leading that team, I would be quite horrified that nobody wants to say anything. So remember to be that +1 person, and remember that your body language has to portray that. Otherwise, you might feel like you are that +1 person. And remember, I think last time I said that question, when people ask you how you are and you say, I'm fine, and they say, have you told your face that? So I think, smiling is a great thing. The way you walk, positive energy, walk faster. I think it's so crazy, but there are so many ways in which you can convey energy and enthusiasm. And that is an attractive quality in anybody. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is disloyalty. Now, you might say, well, I don't have to like my boss. I don't have to be loyal to the company. I'm loyal to me, my career goals, my salary. But there's certain things that can be incredibly unpleasant in the workplace. And you might have done that without even realizing that you could be judged negatively by that. So here's a few examples. In every company, there's the grapevine where there's information, and you get some people who love to share the news. They don't call it gossiping, they call it sharing, but it is actually gossiping. So they're spreading rumors, or they're talking badly about somebody. So I think a rule of thumb is, if you are employed in a company and you have a problem with another individual in the company, whether it's your boss or a colleague, first port of call is to go to that person, the offending person, and to say, can we talk? But what I find happens in a company often is that person will never do that. They'll say, oh, I'm too nice, or I'm too scared, or whatever. Then they'll go and talk to other people about the individual. And I love that saying, keep a short account. Don't make drama where no drama should be. So Dr. Blom and I work together. I feel that she's done something wrong. I don't go and tell somebody else. I'd say, listen, can we have a quick chat? I just want to ask you or talk to you about something. But what some people do is they tell everybody except Dr. Blom, and that's when the problems start. And also being disloyal to the boss. You know, it's not always easy being a manager or being a boss, but I think it's so important to be supportive and not to be actively unsupportive. So there's a lot of people who will do that. They go to the water cooler and they love to share things. And on that same note, that mentality, when the cat's away, the mouse will play. Don't be the mouse. I think, you know, that definition of integrity, it's what you do when you think nobody's watching. So I think the ideal employees and the ideal people who are going to get ahead are those, you know, they write their name on their work. They love what they do. They care about what they do, and they're proud of the job they do. Doesn't matter whether the management is there or not, because they own their role, they own their tasks, and they set their own goals and deadlines. It's not about, oh, my boss wants me to do this, how annoying. But it's actually, these are my goals, and they're actually bigger than my boss's goals. I think that's important. So, you know, people are constantly complaining nothing's right in the company. I worry about candidates like that. When I interview people who everything was wrong everywhere, all the time, guess what? We are creatures of habit. In their next job, they're going to also complain. So you don't want to be that. Also, the divas. It's an interesting thing, but in some companies, you'll get the self-appointed head boy or head girl, the person who decides that they are the unofficial leader. And often these people are quite toxic. They'll put other people down. They won't be supportive of management. And those are the bad apples. And we don't want to be that person who's kind of somehow got this unofficial power, but it's not in a positive way. It's in a negative way that serves our needs and not those of the company or the needs of everybody else. So we don't want to be the divas. And when I talk about disloyalty, I personally know of 3 people who have been dismissed from their jobs because they have emailed their friends or spouses to say how they hate their boss. I mean, it seems like such a rookie error. Why would you do that? Go home and tell him, you know, but a lot of companies, they've got software where they can monitor your keystrokes. They can monitor what you do. They have access to all your emails. You never know what somebody is actually looking at. And I don't particularly agree with that companies should be doing that specifically. I think it's a little bit invasive. However, you don't want to lose a job or not be overlooked for promotion because the powers that be have decided that you are disloyal and that you are unethical or that you are actually treacherous or you know, gossipy. So I think that's important, you know, from that point of view. So I think it's an important thing to understand that management are not superheroes. They're not gods. They are people. And to kind of cut them a bit of slack, I think that's an important thing. The next thing I wanted to just talk to you about is staying quiet. And I think this is something too many people are doing right now. I've spoken on webinars. I've gone to company meetings where half the staff aren't even on there, even though they've responded. People not contributing in a chat, not contributing ideas. They're just sitting and they are They're just keeping their heads down. And one thing I've noticed since COVID, and this is quite a frightening thought, there are many employers who have said, some of my staff have literally disappeared. They've become invisible. I think the reason the staff members have done that is they are so scared to be visible that they don't want to be retrenched. They're just trying to put their head down and do their job. But by being invisible, the company is starting to say, is this person adding value? Are they relevant? We don't miss them. And on that note, and I'm going to deal with an issue that many people are not going to like. There are many, many companies that are saying we don't know how to get our staff back to work. Our staff have become so comfortable working from home. And there are some companies that are starting to make very draconian decisions where they're saying, if you do not come back to work, or you do not come back to work when we need you to, this is literally a career limiting move. So, and again, I know there are so many reasons for it. I'm not even going to go into it, but I would hate anyone on this call to have lost their job or to be overlooked for a promotion or a good opportunity because they are working at home for whatever reasons those are, and they are not being present. And as I say, it's not even about being present at the office. Be present on the call. I also know companies where they're saying they're sending an email to a staff member, say at 9 in the morning. 9 the next morning, they still don't have a response from that staff member. And they're starting to say, well, is this person at their desk? Are they even working? And remember what I said, the employment relationship is a fair exchange. Sometimes they manage your inputs, which isn't so exciting, and then you get a sum of money, or sometimes they manage your outputs for a sum of money. And that is what makes a great employment relationship. So we've got to make sure if we are being paid a sum of money, we agreed to X, that we deliver on X the right way, the right time, in the right manner. I think that's important. So I want to talk to you about staying quiet. Quite a few years ago, I coached a young lady who was with a corporate bank. And she said to me, she had a tiny little voice. She was a very petite little lady. And she said she was so scared to speak up that it actually paralyzed her. She would sit in the meeting and she would just become more and more stressed. She knew she had to say something, but she didn't know what to say. And then by the end, she'd leave every meeting feeling embarrassed and ashamed. And so what we did is we got her to speak up first. Even if it was something, oh, it's hot in here, or gosh, it's so nice to see you. And she started literally loosening her tongue. And it was quite weird. Over the period of about 6 to 12 months, she got 2 promotions and she ended up doubling her salary in a year. And she attributed it to speaking up. I think each one of us at school had that experience where we knew the answer, but we were too self-conscious or embarrassed to speak up. And I think we're moving into an era where people want ideas. They want everyone to contribute. Even if your ideas, you're not sure if it's going to be positive or negative, speak up, ask, I've got an idea, it might be crazy, but be known. I think so many people are just wanting to be a participant and an audience member. But a business is more like a gym than a country club. We want everyone to work. We don't want them to just pop in and do their thing. So I would encourage you to that 5 seconds of courage when you are on a web call or in a meeting to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say something, and share your ideas. Don't be scared to speak up. I think people would rather that you spoke up and it wasn't necessarily the right thing than never speaking up. There's a saying, if somebody's in a meeting and they don't speak, they shouldn't have been in that meeting in the first place. So make sure that you are relevant and that you are adding value and that you're not scared to use your voice. And I think about staying quiet, I think it's important that we also bring our personalities to work. If you're quirky, be quirky. If you're funny, be funny. But work on your X factors. You know what your strengths are. Or if you don't know what your strengths are, ask people around you who you respect to tell you, and then be that person. I really, really am concerned for those people who for 2.5 years haven't been speaking up. They haven't been the first ones to initiate communication. They've been lying low. And I think what is happening is those people are getting targets on their back. Those people are possibly being labeled as lazy. It might be the absolute opposite, but just remember, it's the perception It's not necessarily what's actually happening. So the question to ask yourself is, am I giving the perception that I'm not interested, that I'm not engaged, that I'm not doing what I need to do? And you don't want your boss or your manager to think that, gosh, since COVID, this person's been working at home, but I never hear from them. Maybe I don't need them. We always want to be adding value, be showing that we're adding value as well. And then I've got 2 more points, but the one thing is about boundaries, and it works both ways. So during the last 2 years, some people have had very poor boundaries to their own detriment, okay? And I consider this a career-limiting move in that they've become workaholics. Some people are so scared of losing their job that all they've done is work. They have got no boundaries about when they don't work, when they don't answer WhatsApps and phone calls. And I would encourage you to develop those boundaries. For instance, I don't answer my phone after 6 at night. I don't do emails. I don't work on weekends, whatever those things are, because I think what's happened to some people is they've actually burnt out over this period of time. They're living in isolation and fear. They are working too hard, and they haven't had enough fun, enough excitement, and there's been a lot of negativity. What happens when we burnt out and we're doing too much? Often we feel resentful and bitter. Nobody knows how hard I'm working. I know my colleagues and everyone else is shirking, and here I am carrying the can. We become bitter, and then we're not necessarily the nicest people. We maybe don't communicate well. But when we burnt out, we actually can't be creative. We're exhausted. So I would also encourage you. So we don't want to be the sucker. Also, if we're always that person who does everything, we teach people how to treat us. So then everybody dumps everything on us. So maybe you might find that the career limiting move in this is that you've been too soft to everybody, and as a result, you do everybody else's work and you don't do yours. And then people say, "But I asked you for this." Meanwhile, you're so helpful to others. Or you've reached a point where you don't care anymore. You're so tired that so that didn't work. So I would encourage you, if you have poor boundaries, and many of us do, to maybe say, what does the future look like? Because my career is going to be a long haul. I want it to grow. This is what we see in recruitment. We look at people's CVs and we want to see their career progress. We don't want to see it go up and then down. Something happened there. What happened? Also, a lot of us think, okay, I'll just work hard. But sometimes that's not the answer. I interview so many people who say, but Cindy, I work 10 hours every day. I work so hard. And then when you ask them about their prioritizing, their planning, how they've changed systems, how they've implemented new ideas, what they've done is they've done the same thing every single day. They haven't necessarily used the initiative. They haven't adapted. They haven't worked smart. So if you're one of those people who prides yourself on your hard work, it might actually be a negative. You might actually work so hard that you never work smart. One thing I've realized from lazy people, the lazy people I know in business are incredibly smart. They're always looking for the quickest way and the most efficient way to do things. The other thing I would say on boundaries as well is don't put up with abuse. I know people who contact their staff at 3 a.m, who make them do personal things when it's completely and utterly unacceptable. You're not going to stay in a job like that. And if you allow people to treat you like that, it's never going to end well. So also know which boundaries and where to put them in place if it hasn't worked for you. The last thing as well is not being a problem solver. So often managers get so frustrated, they have a line to their door of staff coming to them with problems. Help me, help me. And the manager becomes a nanny. Or you might find the manager actually enjoys it. They actually enjoy being the know-it-all. But let me tell you, the most important thing we can do if we are working in a company is when there's a problem to go, what do I think is the right answer? What is the right solution? Proposing that solution, or taking an initiative and having the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to fix this thing. And, you know, I think it's better to have tried something and failed than to constantly never have an answer and never have a solution. And the one thing employers hate so much is the lack of follow-up. If you, I'll give you an example. So your boss says to you, listen, we need you to contact the printing company and order 10 of those items. Yes, no problem. A week later, they say, what happened? No, I sent them an email. Yes, but what happened? No, I'm waiting. That is kind of akin to reverse delegation or not owning your job. So we want people who have initiative, who wait, I own this task or this responsibility. I don't need anybody to follow up on me. I will every day communicate back to say, just letting you know, I've emailed and I've phoned, I'll follow up tomorrow. So many people are seen as being ineffective, not being a great producer, not being a great performer because they are not following up. They see that first step as being the whole job. But I sent the email. And this is where a lot of people are not being promoted because they haven't owned that whole role. They haven't completed the whole cycle of action. I think that's so important. So my encouragement, I'm going to take some questions now, is just to say to you that this is not about saying, oh, you're doing this wrong or this wrong, but it's just about those little tweaks. Maybe there's certain elements that you've subconsciously been doing or unconsciously been doing that might just be standing in the way of your career progress and you didn't know about it. And that one thing that you changed, people notice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, Cindy, there are lots of comments, not necessarily questions, but lots of comments in the chat. But I do actually have a question. How do you find, sometimes you're angry and you want to leave a company because of something that's happened there and all you want to do is lash out. So what would you say about not burning your bridges?
I always believe that when we leave a company, we should leave in such a manner that we can always go back. We don't want to go back and we won't go back, but and remember that what your past or present employer says about you is often literally everything about you. So for me,
yes,
I've got some employees who, when they've left, I've said to the recruiter manager who's doing the reference, I've said, have you got time? Because I want to tell you how amazing this person is. They are so amazing. And then afterwards, the employer's gone, oh my gosh, I'm going to hire them. But we don't want those where it's been dicey. And remember that people are people of patterns. When we do recruitment, we understand that past behavior predicts future behavior. It's the best predictor. So if you worked at company A, and you were a problem there and you were difficult and they hated you or whatever, and there was a company B, there was the same thing, company C. Guess what? Company D, this person's got patterns. So I would encourage people that sometimes we need to put on a mask. It's a professional mask. But then we have our people that we can go to, not in the company, but our family, our best friend, where we can go home and say to our spouse or our best friend or our mom or whatever, gosh, my boss is toxic. And let's be honest, some of you might be sitting here going, Cindy, you don't understand. I have a toxic boss. If you have a toxic boss, and it really is a case of it's not you being, out of touch with reality, but you really are in a difficult situation where everyone in your company is unhappy. You have that feeling on a Sunday night where you just, I don't want to go to work, and you're anxious all the time. Then you need to make a move, and I love that saying, you're not a tree, move, and, I would encourage you not to put up with that kind of abuse on a long term, but maybe say to yourself, I'm going to put up with it now because you are far more attractive to an employer, a future employer, when you have a job. So you might say, I'm giving myself 3 months or whatever, and I'm going to count down, but one day, and every day I'm going to try and learn something new. I'm going to make new contacts. I'm going to grow. And every night I'm going to do something to go closer to my goal of finding the right job, grow my network, get on LinkedIn, whatever it is that I need to do. I think that's so important.
Yeah, look, I think for me, that was probably one of the most important lessons, is that, yes, sometimes there are people in a company that I work for that I didn't particularly like and they made life difficult. But it was my decision about how do I react to it. And I think that's quite important, is to make a decision about how you react to it. Are you going to react to it by lashing out, by really damaging your own reputation and leaving a bad taste in the mouth, or are you rather going to be above that and dignified and, try and save face, if you like, either on your own side or on whoever else that toxic person may be. But like you say, if you're working for a toxic person and it doesn't seem that that person is going to become aware that he or she might be like that, then maybe it's time to move,
Absolutely.
Maybe it's just, yeah.
And I think Charles has made a few comments, which I think are so valuable, because I think he's hit the nail on the head here where, we are moving very quickly, I think, into an output-driven environment where people aren't sort of enslaved to the 8.5 hours, shackled to the desk in the company. And I think it's quite an exciting phase. However, I think the reality is not every company has shifted their culture accordingly. So you might find that that's something you aspire to. You're saying, like, listen, this is the kind of place I want to be in. But unfortunately, while I'm still here, I need to still work by the rules of this game, but I know what I want, So to kind of, sometimes you can't change the culture of a big machine because it's been like that for 10 years. There's 200 staff in the company, and the best thing would be to move rather than to sit there and go, you know what, I will be late every day, or I will leave early, and then you end up getting dismissed for something because, it wasn't. And I think a lot of employers are behind where employees want to be. They haven't changed their thinking to this new flexible work from anywhere, output-driven world. And so I think it's probably a cautionary message to managers to say, am I with the times? Am I being a little bit more flexible and trusting people? And I think it comes down to trust.
Yeah, I think that linked to that is a comment that somebody made about the intergenerational ages, if you like, in a modern workplace. The baby boomers and Generation Y and Generation X, and that they sometimes don't get along simply because they don't understand each other. So what would your comment be on that?
Absolutely. So remember that many people on this call might be young. They might be incredibly, so they're from a new generation where they're wanting this work-life balance. They don't just want to live to work. They're wanting a little bit of everything. However, they're reporting to somebody who might be 55 years old or 60 years old, who's kind of come from that real sort of Protestant work ethic, so maybe that's something also for candidates going forward. When you go for an interview for a new job, interview the company, because you don't want to jump from the frying pan to the fire. And this is what I find happens so often. I interview somebody and they'll say, but this job, I was abused. My boss made me work this. And the next job, the same thing. And so often when people go for an interview, they don't even ask questions about the culture. They don't go and see the environment. So I think so often we just want to get a job rather than going, actually, is it the right job? And then the question is, can I see myself doing this for 3 years? If I think I can't tolerate it, why am I doing that? So I think it is important to understand that if the people in power are very conservative and you're not, there might be an instant clash, and you might find that is actually not the work environment for you. Some people are quite relaxed about it, but others certainly aren't. Yeah.
So Mohammed says, was it Charles? I worked at a company where I was told they've been doing it a certain way for 100 years, and I made changes. And I trained a team of 300 people. So that's wonderful. But I mean, I do think that sometimes the institutional memory tends to overwhelm newcomers, and if they are being told that this is how we've been doing it for 20, 25, 30 years, then it's very difficult to get them to change. So that, let's just see what Mohammed says. Find another company. Mohammed said, Raheel says, find another company. Baby boomers don't like changes. It's difficult to make change. Exactly. I suppose.
You know what I think? I think I've used this comment before in our previous seminars. They say if the rate of change outside the organization is greater than the rate of change inside, you're doomed for extinction. And because we've come through three years of such intense radical change, I personally believe companies have to change. So I think it's a conversation that needs to be taking place in companies is, are we relevant? Is our management style relevant? Is our culture welcoming? Are we attracting the right people? And I think that is important. And I see Bethuel said volunteerism works, but our bosses sometimes don't notice or acknowledge it. Absolutely. But there's something to be said for doing the right thing, and doing the extra thing is you actually walk a little taller. It builds your own confidence. So, and you might think they might not acknowledge it, but they might see it. So a lot of people might not praise you to your face, but they might, a lot of things don't go unnoticed. So don't just assume because nobody says thank you that they're not actually noticing it.
Yeah, I've noticed, in fact, being originally a Joburger and coming to Durban, I've noticed that in some communities there's a very strong sense of social responsibility and responsiveness. And it's just a commonplace thing, everybody does it. So and nobody asks for attention, or nobody asks for particular acknowledgement. It's just something they do. And that's really impressive as far as I'm concerned, as a manager of people like that. It's really impressive to see.
Absolutely. And I think companies are becoming more socially conscious, and I think it's great. I mean, I know a lot of companies though who will offer, like, it's Mandela Day, who wants to come out and do stuff. A lot of the staff are like, no, thanks. And I think sometimes if the company or the manager is very community minded and staff are not interested, it sometimes can also, and it can go the other way around as well, of course, Yes. I see tomorrow, my face gives me away. It's so hard to hide how you feel. And I really do understand that. Some people really battle with that, but I think it is a little bit of, it comes with some emotional maturity to go, sure, I'm really angry right now, I'm really upset, but you know what? This isn't the time or the place. Count to 10, count to 100, go to the bathroom, and remember, keyboard warriors. That is such an easy way to a career limiting move. If I could say number 11, count to 10 before sending emails. If you pick up the phone, if there's an issue, don't send an email, because people infer tone, and sometimes we want to be right, but we get the last word in, but that was the wrong thing to do. So often it would just be better to go to that person's desk and say, I'm so sorry, I think that email might have come out wrong, or I'm sorry I did that, and then you diffuse the situation quickly. But some people have created their own death spiral by emailing, and then it just gets worse and worse. So as I said, keep a short account. I think that's so important.
That's good. Wonderful. So I've tried to make notes as we went along, and hope everybody else noted the 10 career limiting moves that they should try and avoid. I'm sure there are more, but as a minimum, these 10 are really critical. And so we're at the end of our webinar. Can't believe the time flies so quickly when we're having fun. Thanks once again, Cindy, and thank you everyone for attending. I see we have over 100 people who joined us. And please, everybody, remember that you can get the recording on the YouTube channel, and it's been posted in the chat a couple of times. So feel free to go and have a look at that, and also to share it with other people if you think that they might also find it valuable. So once again, Cindy, thank you very much. It's always wonderful to have you on board.
Thanks,
and
Dr.
let's
Blom.
do so again. Let's do so again quite soon. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you very much for coming.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.